I know. I know. There were dark times, very, very dark times, but you're stuck, you're alone, you look only at the bed. When I look at you, I don't see your mistakes. That's why we need each other.
I never expected Thunderbolts. During a time when the MCU seems to have an obsession with the multiverse, I'm not sure if anyone thought that a story about the MCU's various morally gray side characters would be one of the most interesting movies from the Marvel Universe that we've had in some time, but it just works. We're able to see these characters essentially all get redemption arcs, while they also deal with their respective issues, but through that baggage, they're all able to come together as a team, and eventually, as a family. I love when you get a team of people who should in theory completely hate each other's guts, but against all odds they come together to be great. The real tragedy of this movie is that it didn't perform so well in the box office, which means Marvel is going to see one of the most creative, emotional, and well-written projects as a failure. I really can't fathom what is motivating these people who market movies to sit there and do nothing to get people to watch these movies. Though I will admit, what little advertisement this movie did get was pretty good. But come on Marvel, you have the money to put trailers for this everywhere. It's just so unfortunate that when people get inspired and they make something unlike what we've gotten before, studios see it as too different and automatically assume it won't sell. I think that anyone that overlooks this movie because of how it's doing financially is going to seriously miss out on one of Marvel's greatest hidden gems. This movie has such a unique style to it, and it's something that more comic book films should take inspiration from. I think it's safe to say that Thunderbolts will end up becoming a cult classic among fans, and hopefully that will be enough to get Marvel to realize we want more unique projects just like it in the future. This film has such a distinct style that makes it something special, but what I think people are resonating with the most is how the movie discusses mental health, and how these characters, more specifically Yelena, work through their emotions and come together as the Thunderbolts. I think what either makes or breaks this movie for people is that this isn't really a typical superhero movie. We don't have a lead who has to learn to become a charming and selfless hero who everyone looks up to. We instead get a group of misfits who we've seen be a lot less than perfect in the past, and they're still those same people. You can either see Thunderbolts as a break from superhero fatigue, or as a movie that doesn't belong with the rest of the MCU, and you know what? I don't think that's a bad thing. This movie has amazing cinematography, intense and engaging fight choreography, and a story that feels more grounded while still being set in a comic book world. The visual style of this movie really helps to make it stand out among the somewhat tired cinematography of most modern MCU movies. That and the amazing soundtrack for this movie really puts you into the world of the Thunderbolts and gets you ready to go along for the ride. And I mean it when I say these fights are engaging, even them just fighting in the incinerator was really well choreographed. It's so much better to have fights that feel real instead of having CGI characters fighting each other, and the same goes for the multiple stunts in this movie. It just feels so much more impactful when there's real weight and thought put into the action on screen. It gives Thunderbolts that same feeling that earlier comic book movies had, and I think it's a step in the right direction. As I've said before, comic book movies, more specifically Marvel movies, have all started to sort of melt into one another and just feel like the same reused jokes and lazy visual effects. But I think that taking the characters that people would least expect and bringing them together as a new team of so-called heroes was a nice change of pace. Having these specific characters become a team leads to a more relatable story that isn't so focused on bold heroes triumphing over evil, but instead normal people triumphing over their pasts. All our leads are basically stuck in a position where they are continuously being forced to do terrible things, while also no longer being seen as necessary by the person who gave them their only purpose. They are each discarded by Valentina and sentenced to be erased, never having been more than minions for her, so they are forced to survive. Each of these guys are just as imperfect as the next. John Walker is stuck up, Ghost is standoffish, Alexei yearns for glory, Bob is pretty much lost, and Yelena doesn't want this life for herself anymore. At a glance, it seems like the story is focused on the complete opposite of what a protagonist should be. We have an entire group of the lowest of the low, and each of them have their own baggage. But as the film progresses, the layers start to peel back, and we see that these are all just people who have made mistakes and gone through hell, most of them having no choice over what happened to them. They're all starting from their own personal rock bottoms, and they have nowhere to go but up. Sure, maybe they haven't been upstanding citizens or even good people most of the time, but they want to change. They had their chance to be something better get taken away, but now they're able to work together to be a team that could actually do some good. All of them in one way or another are only looking to be better than they were before and move on from a life of crime. Bucky knows more than any of them that your past doesn't decide your future. He's the best example for someone who was forced to be a weapon but was able to pave his own future and become a hero. If the Winter Soldier was able to be anything more than a ruthless killer, then so can the Thunderbolts, and it's why he's willing to help. And sure, maybe Alexei wants to be a hero for selfish reasons, and maybe John's methods are pretty unorthodox, but that's exactly the point. These people are far from perfect. They're no better than any of us. They're probably worse than most of us. The important thing is that they're given the chance to try and be more than that, and they take it, step by step. They're willing to put their differences aside and try to come together for a higher calling. Maybe they aren't our typical heroes, maybe they'll never be Captain America, or Spider-Man, or Iron Man, but they can be decent people. All they have to do is to make that effort towards improving. But before any of them could have their own redemption, before they could become something even close to heroes, they needed to face their past. And the final piece of the emotional puzzle for the movie that ties everyone together is Bob. What makes this movie stand out so much to me is how it handles the topic of mental health through its characters. Like Max Such a Wiki 6062, I'm sorry if I just butchered your name, said in the comments of my Fantastic Four video, Thunderbolts is an ad for mental health awareness disguised as a Marvel movie, which I couldn't have said better myself. In recent years, the stories we've gotten really have felt like the emotional weight hasn't really been there like it was before, but this movie brings that emotion behind its writing. I think anyone that has ever had to struggle with depression or anxiety or any other mental struggle was able to resonate and relate to this movie in a way that I'm sure most people weren't expecting from an MCU project. We start the movie off with Yelena literally on the edge, having spent the last few months, probably even years, feeling a sense of emptiness. She can't just let go of what's happened in her past, and it's eating her up inside. Not only has she had countless terrible things done to her, but she has her own share of misdeeds. Yelena doesn't want to be a tool for Valentina anymore. She doesn't want to be a weapon for anyone, and after seeing Alexei, she wants to have a nobler purpose. She just wants to move past everything that's happened and hopefully become someone that she can be proud to be, but it seems like she doesn't have that luxury. The same can be said about the rest of the Thunderbolts, whether it was losing their family, having trust issues, feeling inadequate, wanting a higher purpose, or some combination of these things. These are all people who are in a tough spot, and even though they may refuse to acknowledge it, Bob is the manifestation of their deepest, darkest thoughts. Bob knows that he's had a hard life, that his choices have made it even worse, and he feels like he has no control over his own life. In trying to be better, he made the choice that led him to becoming something far worse than he could have ever imagined. It seems like no matter what he does, he's destined to end up alone and defeated, and he's tired of it. His defeatist nature shows what all the Thunderbolts are pushing away, but still feel within them. That disdain for themselves and a deep desire for things to be any different than they are for them now. We get to actually see what each Thunderbolt is dealing with, the actions and memories that they keep in their minds but can't bear to face, and we see that struggle personified through Bob and his different personalities. Bob, like the rest of the team, has to battle with what's happened in his life, with the things that were done to him and the choices that he made, and it's all too much for him to handle. When Bob was at his lowest, having to fight the physical manifestation of his void, it seemed like nothing that he could do would change anything. He was always going to be the same person with no direction in his life, who had to endure so much and is still struggling to get back up. The void took all of the things in Bob's life, all the hurt, all the failure, and brought it to the front of Bob's mind to prove to him he's worthless. There's no way for Bob to ever amount to anything when his whole life has been nothing but pain and disappointment. But everything before this point just shows how that's not true. All of these people could be argued to be bad, maybe even terrible. They all have a dark past. To some, they could even be seen as irredeemable, permanently defined by their past mistakes and choices. Even for characters like Yelena, she doesn't see a way out for herself. That's why I love what Alexei says to her just before the void takes over. Alexei himself was a failure in his own right, having been trained to be Russia's own Captain America, but having the same outcome as most of these anti-heroes. He had a fall from grace, from being praised like a hero, and he chases that feeling every day, wanting to be praised again. That desperation for a higher purpose is his driving force for helping the Thunderbolts, his selfish need to be praised, but he knows that Yelena has true potential. He reminds her of the person that she was when she was just a kid, just a bright, cheerful girl who always made sure everyone was alright. In her heart of hearts, she has always been a compassionate person. Even now, after everything, after so many things that Yelena still suffers over, he still sees that light within her. It may have dimmed over the years, but he knows that she can shine the same way that she used to and come out of her void. That's the mentality that the rest of the Thunderbolts needed to adopt. They needed to realize that they were once good people, and they still can be. They have to accept what it is that happened to them, the things they chose to be before, and learn to live with it. In the last moments of Bob's struggle with the void, Yelena chooses to take that step and comfort Bob the way she needed to be comforted and share her pain with him. And as each of the Thunderbolts joins in the embrace, that void that once controlled all of Bob's life is slowly taken away. By sharing in that pain and that regret and supporting one another, the void they each have becomes smaller and their light is able to shine through again. They're now able to fill that void with empathy and learn to grow beyond what they thought they could be. They all proved that they can be more than they originally thought just before any of this. They were out saving people, giving others hope when most of them couldn't find hope for themselves. But that's what makes this message so powerful. Maybe you can't see what you're worth, maybe you've had it rough, but there are people out there that will understand. People who can help to pick you up when you're down, not only because they care about you, but because they've been where you are. No one is above anyone else, and this group of convicts and vigilantes certainly isn't the model of greatness, but they all know what it's like to suffer, to have to deal with trauma and loss and remorse, and that gives them their empathy. These characters went through so many traumatic experiences, they went to such low places in their lives and did such terrible things, but were able to hold each other up in order to help the people around them. They're making up for their mistakes and ultimately making better choices in order to become people that they can be proud of. They show that in order to fill the void in your life, you first have to let go of that past trauma that's held you down before and learn to pick yourself and others back up. Our team, made up of some of the most irredeemable people, were able to rise above their past mistakes and hardships and become a team of caring heroes who had each other's backs. They were able to break through the void together as a family and come out the other side as the new Avengers. With a Z for legal reasons.
Avengers. With the Z, there is no copyright.
I think it's pretty clear at this point that Marvel makes its best movies when they let a director have their own space and work on something that they know can be special. Thunderbolts is the perfect example of a director taking a unique idea and really bringing their vision to life, and I love the final product. This film is a visually stunning, emotion-filled triumph that I think will only receive more love as time goes on. I give Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, an 8.7 out of 10. I think that for the MCU to be successful with fans in the future, they need to take chances on movies like this and let directors put their all into a story that they truly care about. And I think having Jake Schreier, the director of Thunderbolts, be the director for X-Men is a perfect choice. Thunderbolts isn't a movie where we see a hero rise, but we see messed up people who have to work through their past, and they may not be perfect by the end, but they're better than they ever thought they could be. It's a message that we can all admire and try to apply to our own lives, because none of us are perfect, but every single day is an opportunity to try to be, and maybe help each other out in the process. I just quickly wanted to say here at the end, thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. It means the world to me that my silly little videos about movies have some amount of people entertained. And I hope those of you can stick with me, and I'll do what I can to keep up the quality and uploads. And if you're watching this video and you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, as it really would mean the world to me, and I'll be posting more videos like this in the near future. Please sound off in the comments about what you want to see me cover next, or anything that I could change or do better in your eyes. Other than that, I hope you're doing well, and with everything out of the way, I'll catch y'all next time.